If you can imagine, your neighbourhood is being attacked by a vicious sectarian mob, and they're burning you out of your home. I mean, what are you going to do? You know, you go home to your homes tonight. If that happened, what would you do? What are your choices? I imagine you would call the police. What if the police hang up? What if the police laugh in your face, call you a Indian bastard? What if the police go out and help the mob who are trying to burn you out of your home and assist them? What then do you do? What is your choice? This is the stark choice it faces in August 1969. And there's probably a misconception that British troops were sent in to protect the Catholic and nationalist communities. They weren't. They were sent in because the RUC and the B Specials were overstretched and the people were fighting back and erecting barricades. British troops were in to protect a British state, a British Union state with British guns and British troops. And then you take the time to look at the photographs of British troops on the Falls Road. They have fixed bayonets and they are facing the Catholic community, the nationalist community in the Falls Road. Their backs are turned to protect a factory owned by a unionist businessman. They're protecting property of nationalist and Republican lives are under threat. And it's very easy now, yeah, British troops were in protect. They weren't in there to protect the state, and let's not forget that. That's what the situation was. This led to no-go areas. People erected barricades. It certainly led to a reinvigoration of the Republican movement, which unfortunately split into the official Republican and provisional Republicans. On August 9, 1971, the Unionist regime, with the backing of the British government, introduced internment. Hundreds of Republicans and Socialists were arrested and imprisoned without trial. Some were tortured, and most were verbally and physically abused and ill-treated. The prisoners were held in decent huts in compounds on a disused World War II Royal Air Force airfield on the outskirts of Belfast named Long Kesh. This makeshift camp was to become the site of the infamous H blocks in which 10 hunger strikers died. 6 months after the introduction of internment, the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association organised a march in Derry City on January the 30th, 1972. The march and rally was attended by tens of thousands of people, including a member of the British House of Lords and supporters from around the world. The march was attacked by British paratroopers who fired indiscriminately on the helpless marchers, killing 14 innocent civilians and wounding scores more. The event was witnessed live by the world's TV cameras and has become known as Bloody Sunday. So a stark choice confronted us all. You could pick up a placard, engage in peaceful protests and be shot down in cold blood, or you could pick up a pistol and at least try to even the score. Also in 1972, Billy McKay, a senior IRA leader, led a hunger strike protest in Crumlin Road Prison in Belfast to gain recognition for IRA prisoners as political prisoners. Republicans who were in turn already had special status, but those convicted in the normal way were not. When McKay was close to death, the Conservative Secretary of State, William Whitelaw, conceded special category status to the prisoners. This is really a British euphemism for political status. The adverse publicity nationally and internationally generated by the use, or rather the abuse, of internment without trial caused the British government to introduce the diplock courts in 1972. These courts were established using a draconian set of judicial rules, the diplock rules, named after an English judge, Lord William J. Diplock. The notorious diplock courts were non-jury courts, presided over by a single judge with despotic powers. The Special Powers Act, later to be replaced with the Prevention of Terrorism Act, was used to arrest suspects without a warrant, hold them incommunicado for up to 7 days, and used confessions, often coerced and without corroborating evidence, as admissible in these courts. Many prisoners were held on remand for inordinately length periods of time in what amounted to internment by remand instead of internment without trial. There was a special list of scheduled offences, or terrorist offences as the British government called them. And the British, coming out of the Diplock report, the British actually defined a terrorist offence at the time, and this is in their own records, as an act of violence for political ends. This is a very important point because all those who went on hunger strike and hate blocks had been convicted in the Diplock courts. So technically, even under the British own definition of terrorism, they were political prisoners. Yet Margaret Thatcher was to declare them criminals, or denounce that crime is a crime is a crime. The removal of special category status was the beginning of the British policy of criminalisation. Following the introduction of the Diplock courts, the British government prorogued the Parliament of Northern Ireland and enacted direct rule from Westminster. And some nationalists thought that this was a progressive step, believing that London politicians would be more sympathetic to their grievances than local unionists, especially a Labour government which was elected to power twice in 1974. They were to be sadly mistaken. In 1976, the British Secretary of State, Merlin Rees, abolished special criminal status for Republican loyalist prisoners to take effect on March 1st, 1976. It's a popular misconception that Margaret Thatcher had abolished special category status. In fact, it had been a Conservative Secretary of State in Northern Ireland that had introduced it, and a Labour Party Secretary of State that had abolished it. In essence, anyone convicted of so-called terrorist offence committed on or before February 29, 1976 would receive special category status, i.e. become a political prisoner. Anyone convicted of exactly the same offences on or after March 1st, 1976 would be treated as a common criminal. And this punitive act would lead to a serious escalation in violence, a complete deterioration of prison conditions, and eventually led to the hate spot hunger strikes in 1980 and 1981. The first man to be sentenced to the H blocks following the denial of special category status was Kieran Nugent. He refused to don a prison uniform and defiantly proclaimed to the crews, "If you want me to wear a prison uniform, you're going to have to nail it to my back." Kieran Nugent spent the next 3.5 years with nothing but a rotten blanket to cover himself. All furniture was removed from his cell. He was left with just a rotten mattress to sleep on. Over the next 5 years, hundreds more Republican prisoners of war would join the blanket protest under increasingly barbaric conditions. In March 1980, special criminal status was removed for all prisoners regardless of when their offences had been committed. Let's not forget that what these prisoners went through day after day. They were locked up 24 hours in a tiny cell, unwashed and unshaven. They were constantly hosed down with freezing cold water, naked except for a blanket, cold food, often with maggots in it, freezing in the winter months, and the constant threat of the screws opening the cell door to deliver their customary brutality. These are things that should never be forgotten. Margaret Thatcher knew all this, but she did nothing to stop it. To her eyes, the prisoners in Long Kesh meant nothing.